Got it. Let's go.
Okay, cool. So let's start when we kind of finished last time. So let's say we want to start a new web like front end project. And last time we spoke like yeah, we need to choose a framework. We need to select some libraries and stuff and set up things and so on. And yeah, so basically we can do just that. And yeah, because yeah, there's a lot like you can you can start from the basic tutorials and documentation. You can also take like inspiration ideas from somewhere like YouTube blogs and so on, and some would set up your project, but you shouldn't miss like the important pieces. So last time we actually spoke about like yeah, you need a lot of functionalities like server-side rendering and the routing and like organizing your app and a lot of other things, internalization, TypeScript, preferably some linting, image optimizations, and a lot of other things to do like proper web. And there are frameworks that like built on top of other like frameworks and libraries and help you do all of that like let's say easily or yeah easily. And yeah, and we talk about like different things like React, Vue, and that you can choose whatever. But we let's say confirm that we want to do React. And for React, the most popular framework that does a lot of these things is Next.js. So we can start with Next.js. We probably won't need much about like learnings, but we will skip that and we will go for creating a new React app. I think yeah, documentation might be better. Yeah, cool. So yeah, that you need to do like your setup. And first thing you will discover, okay, so there's like tooling for automatic setup of your app, which you can use for sure. It will help with a lot of things because for the manual setup, you need to configure some stuff, and we don't need that for now. So we can do, let's say, the automatic setup and delete the things that we don't need, then do the manual one. Uh, so let's go. And first thing you will notice, you have like three different versions of things, and and they also need some background and stuff. So let's start with that. So first of all, you need Node.js installed because like it's still JavaScript and you're running in the JavaScript ecosystem. So we need the Node.js. But as you go for Node.js, you can no, I want this thing. And yeah, you can do like, download the LTS version and you'll be fine. But what you can also do, and you will discover later on that like different projects might and different version of the same tech, even the next, can like support like different version of actually JavaScript and Node.js ecosystem, which is kind of fun. So you usually want to bet on the LTS, but you might also want to switch versions of Node for different things. So then you should go with Node version manager. So basically, first thing you should install is some Node version manager. There are several of them. I used NVM a lot, but recently I switched to N, just N, because when you like cut down two letters, it gets faster. But like seriously, like NVM is fine, but it's kind of slow sometimes, and yeah, like it can actually slow down significantly, like starting of your terminal and things like that, because it kind of loads your node like every time you load your terminal, which is not good. Instead, N is like much simpler, but it just installs the version and do some like automated like symbolic links, and it's good. So it's kind of fast. So now I switch to N. So first thing you want to do is probably install N, and you can install it from like several ways. Like there's Mac stuff. There's just simple bash script and so on. So you can do stuff, and well, then you have your N manager. Then you can install N LTS will automatically install you like the like LTS version of Node, but you can actually switch like super simple. Just choose your version of Node and just click install and it will install it. So then you need to be sure that you have like Node version installed, and you have with Node there's like built-in package manager, which like every modern language usually contains package manager. So there's npm package manager as a default. So it also, and it's like built into the Node. So if you actually go for some like details, you will also know that the version of Node automatically includes this version of npm. So that's what I got installed on my computer. And now I'm ready to run let's say this first command, because npx is just like shortcut for npm execute. So I'm not actually sure if it supports version command, but let's see. It does, and it's the same thing, so it returns the same version. But that's not all, because what is npm? Well, npm is like separate project. It's just like packed with Node, but it's a separate thing, and it's a package manager like for the JavaScript ecosystem. That's why we like install the Node and stuff, because we need some package manager for all the other stuff that we will install, like for the Next.js. But yeah, it's kind of big, long running project and so on, and but it is still some like one single project. And actually the initiative on the Node side was to change that. So now there is, from I think Node 16 something, there's actually a thing called core pack. It's still experimental. So sorry, so it was added in 16.9, but yeah, and 14 it was previous altas. So yeah, it's still experimental, but it should allow you to use like different package managers. So there's like the movement that Node will no longer come like with built-in npm, but with you can actually choose your package manager, and you can do that even now. So basically the second thing, like Node is fine. You can also try Bun, but it's a different story. We're not gonna go there. You could also do stuff with Deno, but again, not gonna go there today. But then you can at least choose your package manager, and there's like significant difference. My favorite that I use usually is PNPM, which is really nice how it does things. You can watch video, you can actually see benchmarks, you can actually see stuff here. So it should be kind of fastest and like most compact for the space and things like that. And you can see like some benchmark and stuff, and it's really nice basically. So I use this package manager, but you can choose your own. The installation, you can actually use already like the core pack, like the thing directly from Node. You can install it like with standalone script, and you can also use like npm to install your different package manager. So this is like one simple command or this or something, and you can install it. So I have my pnpm installed as well. Could be like the current version. So I can actually, from these options back to the original Node, I can actually choose this this option like with PNPM. I have also Yarn. I have like all three, by the way, but I just for fun, let's use PNPM. And yeah, and the second thing, like which is also like here highlighted, is like TypeScript. And yeah, we definitely want to use TypeScript. So we will choose this, and we can, we can start creating new project. Okay, so I will, first of all, I will go to my projects folder, right? And then I will start creating my project. Yay. It should do stuff, and now it wants my app name. So yeah, I actually don't know, to be honest, what we're gonna build. Probably not much. This is just a setup, but yeah, I don't know. Let's call it my app for now. I'm really lazy. Okay, my app. So yeah, it will install like Next, React, and stuff like that, and then it will install TypeScript. It will install like linters and other things. Basically, prepare some structure for us for the project, which is really nice. Now we can go to the my app here, and yeah, we have the app with dependencies and stuff installed, and it should be kind of ready to go. So if we check our package JSON, we will see like the commands that are here, and we can start the development, quite easily, which is also described. Well, there's pages, but like basically you can run pnpm dev, just to start the development mode, which we will do. Bam, app is already running on this address, and yeah, and we have project set up.
I got just a quick question. So is like development mode, is that like a virtual environment or what is that exactly?
Very good question. The development mode is basically that it's taking the live code, like from TypeScript. If you have JavaScript, it takes JavaScript. It like compiles it on the real time, and it watches for changes. So every time I change something in my code, it will automatically update those changes into the result and refreshes the page, and I can do like real time development. So I will actually bring this down here, and I can show you quite easily. So I can let's say I want to switch something, so I will go to pages, and I will go to main page. I think it's there. Yeah, and I will for example switch this title, and I will save it, and it actually it's a title, so it actually got refreshed like up here. So now I want to switch the thing here. I want to do, let's say, hello. So I can do this. I will save it, and now it's automatically refreshed and ready to go. So this is like the development mode when you have like the interactive changes, and yeah, you can follow it. And here you can actually see the triggers for the compilation and the compilation times and stuff like that. But yeah, and then there is like in the actual commands where there is also like start and build, where the build is important. That's where you like take it, you really like compile it, optimize it, and everything, and you basically put out the code that you want to have in the production, the really like minimized, optimized code. And then with start, you start actually the compiled build, and it doesn't refresh like for the changes or anything. You just started the like final product, and linting is just where you want to lint the code. So
Very good.
does it explain the question, or did I answer?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah, I mean,
So basically, development is like mode for quick, easy development, and then when you want to actually like do the final build or deploy or something, you do the build, and then it will create an extra folder like with the build, and that then you can take that build and upload it somewhere.
So just to understand, Henry, Next is built on top of regular vanilla React.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is the thing. By the way, it also created my initial commit for me, which is really nice, because probably that's the next thing you want to do. Like initialize your project, create a commit, and then like create some GitHub repo and push it there. So that will probably be the next step. The other steps you want to take is like set up your linters, because now there are, let's say, some default ones again, like in there should be a string config, and there is just some like uh, basic stuff. So yeah, just some recommended configuration, but you probably want something more excessive. And so yeah, then you can start reorganizing your project structure, for example. You can start installing some libraries, or some configurations, for example, when you want to do CSS and JavaScript for style components, or when you want to do that internalization, and things like that. So it's mostly based on the framework and the things, and then you can actually start developing by the framework standards. Like first thing, you probably want to get familiar with how pages work and how server-side rendering works, and other things. Yep, we can go through some of those steps today. There was some question, or no? Okay.
Yes, I have a question about the port. So
Uh,
is 3000 is the default port for Next.js?
Yeah, I think so. It should be probably somewhere in the configuration. But the 3000 will be like the default. It's, by the way, default like for most of the apps, but it can be changed, because there's like some configuration like Next.js config, which is like just this for now, but I think you can actually specify a port here or something. So
I see. Thank you.
you can change it easily. And yeah, like all the things, like now when we go, back like to the basic documentation, like yeah, first step, pages and data fetching and a lot of other things. There should be also like some let's say, yeah, setup. There's also like a lot of demos that you can check out. For example, how you can connect it with WordPress, and things like that. Fun stuff.
So I'm sorry. Next is it came out to solve the like something to do with state in React, like to be able to kind of pass around the state to different components easier, or what is?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that like last time. It came to solve like common problems or common, let's say, challenges that you face with the front-end development, like for example, different modes of rendering, like client side, server side, static side generation, and things like that. Also routing, a lot of those things are actually connected to routing, and also other things like, you know, TypeScript, linting, and the CSS in JavaScript and like type components, and a lot of those things basically put together to build a framework which allows you to develop, you know, apps with React, but like all batteries included, because React is just, you know, like rendering library with some, you know, built-in simple built-in state management, but that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Welcome. Just looking. There's actually the config, and yeah, like the config is actually kind of big because you can do like a lot of things in there, but awesome stuff. No. I'm going to find a port, but maybe if I do this, yeah, so you can get it, but this is a database, no? Yeah, so you can set up like environment variable, like we'll change the port. Yeah. I'm just curious. Okay, so well, now we can do like some, let's say, advanced setup. Like first of all, you probably now want to also choose some editor, you know, of your choice. VS Code, for example, or some other things. So yeah, I trust the authors. Let's put it here. So yeah, let's open a terminal here. Kind of better. Yeah, so now you can maybe see more clearly like some basic structure, that package JSON file, that configuration file, and you know, some CSS stuff, and the linters, which just like extend some basic rules, and also TypeScript config when we are at it, like because use TypeScript.
Hey, can you just make the lettering a little bit bigger so
Yeah,
that
sure.
whoever is watching
okay.
this video can see it? Perfect.
Yeah, good call.
Cool. So yeah, and basically like when you start this project, this is like good like first step, and then you would go and set up like other stuff. Like probably the next thing I would set up is like linting, and then the project structure and so on. I actually last time I send it you the guide like on the yeah, this is actually because this should be section. This, and there is the Frontend Academy, right? And there is the wiki page, and yeah, and there's the guide, so like there was the getting started. This is basically the thing, like node version manager, npm or other package manager. And then this is just some intro. Then React, like React is kind of important when you want to build like React apps, but just some intro, and then the project setup. And that's the thing again, like create the app with the TypeScript support, use the linters, like there is only this basic one, like str. We have our own like rules for the code, so we have our own linters, and they also include formatting rules, so we can include our own rules. And we can also do prettier, which is kind of nice. And we have also our custom config for prettier, like, of course. And then there are some tools like to apply the linting and prettier like automatically before you state your commits, and also before you actually do your commits, or you submit your commits. And then you can also lint the commits themselves, like you can lint commit messages to be certain format and so on. And like basically we as like big company, we have our own rules, and we have like the tools to, let's say, enforce them on each project, so we are kind of consistent. But there are also like smaller companies or personal project when you just you can set up your own rules and just follow them, but like the enforcing is really good for bigger teams and so like new people and so on. And so that's that. So those might be probably some first step, and then next step is actually reorganizing the project. So just do some cleanup, you do some like folder structure. Again, different, let's say, companies or different people have different opinions about how your project should be structured, etc. And with the, of course, with the changing the structure, you actually need to change some stuff in the configuration, so everything is like proper, especially the TypeScript, so everything is like properly configured. And so and some base components and other stuff. Then there was some lecture about TypeScript, about like HTML and stuff. I actually went through that last time, but then you go like, and you can start with the CSS, and you do basically like the CSS in JavaScript solution, which you like, you also have like many options how to do that. You can build your own like CSS, or let's say like your own design system in general. You can use Storybook and things like that to see it, or you can use like pre-built ones, let's say Tailwind, sorry, Stitches, Emotions, and other. And you can use them like the CSS in JavaScript with the style components, which actually are like supported by the Next. You just install it again as a package, and you just say that you want to use style components, and Next will take care of the rest. You can also install plugins for your editor to support some syntax for that, and so then you can start building your styling system and fun stuff like that. By the way, why do we prefer like CSS in JavaScript? Because even though like CSS improves, and we also have like things like SaaS and stuff like that. When you build like application which is mostly some JavaScript interaction and stuff, you also want to usually change your CSS based on some JavaScript, at least sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes. And you can easily do that like with the CSS in JavaScript, because you can apply like values directly to your CSS, like from your JavaScript, so you can do stuff. Okay. Yeah, and then there's like optimization and things like that, which again, like Next.js takes care of a lot of those things, like by default. But of course, you can you can, when you like import images like some way with the Next, and you use some components from the Next, the images are automatically optimized for you and so on. And then we can come like to data manipulation and state management and things like that. And again, like you can use different libraries and different strategies. This was actually also like this is also described here, like in the Next.js guide with right, it was like data fetching here. But I got it. This is data fetching for like server-side rendering and things like that, because Next like does some extra features like on top of React to enable like server-side rendering and things like that. But how you fetch your data is still like up to you. So you also need to like decide on that. For example, like you have REST API, so you might want to use some library for comfortable, remote state management. So you can use like React query or something like that, which with simple fetch or with some other library for fetching itself, like I don't know, Axios or Key or something like that. And then of course, when you have like different kinds of APIs, like in GraphQL API, you can choose like Apollo client for all the state management again, and so on. Yeah. So a lot of choices, a lot of configurations to do potentially, but the next is like the important part, which kind of connects all of it together and supports a lot of stuff basically out of the box. So yeah, don't need this. Cool. So I'm thinking what to do next. Like do you have some, let's pause here a bit. Like, do you have some specific question, or is there something you would like to see like specifically, or should I just show you like the, some continue with some setup or something? Because I think we showed some base, I shared those resources even last time, and like I think everybody can kind of follow them or something. So maybe like to give you something extra, some added value on top of like existing, tutorials and resources and documentations.
I'd be interested to see something using or making API calls.
Yeah. Okay. We can do that. Okay. Well, first of all, you probably want to choose, your libraries for the like state management. Of course, we can just use the simple fetch. It really depends. Like and then it depends how you like combine it with the Next. So for example, like for the data fetching, there are some probes and so on, or we could do like fetching with the classical stuff, because like this data fetching is actually supposed to be like for the server side rendering mainly. The client side, which is like here, is basically the same old stuff like with the React. So you
That's
just
the fetch API, like in
you can use just the fetch API. And like the thing is that for when you want to have client side rendering, like you load the page, then you start the React, and then you do just the API call, then you wait, and then you show the data. You can use like the classical, let's say, React way. But then like Next supports some other stuff. For example, you can use server-side props, and what you can do, you create this like extra method. You create your component as usual, and you create this extra method that actually fetches the data and then passes the data as a props to the component. And this is actually then done on the server. So like server pre-renders some state, then it passes the pre-rendered page to the client, and then it starts the React part of rendering also on the client. So you have like combined rendering capabilities, and you can also cache the result of the server-side rendering and things like that. But again, what you use like inside the server-side rendering is up to you. So like usually these days, like you can just use fetch. But for example, like when you have the local state and you want to also have some caching and some like interactive updating and some basically like the remote state management, you can use some libraries. A really popular one is like React Query. Yeah, also translates to like other basically frameworks as well. Like it started again like with React, but you have also like Vue query and Svelte query, and yeah, they also like had just React query, and then they migrated like to this stack. Basically, the idea is to help you with the data management. So for example, like first thing you can notice that you still like use the fetch API, but you use the query hook and query client and things like that, like to support using to basically support several things. Like first of all, you automatically get some error and loading states and things like that, but also you actually are in more control of your overall state of your app. So for example, you can say when I update this data or receive, I actually need to update state on several places, and it will automatically, for example, refetch some data and like update the things on several like parts of the site at the same time and things like that, without you to need like go and tell every component like separately how to fetch the data. You can do that like from one place, and React query will basically take care of the rest. And also React query
Okay, that's very cool. Yeah.
yeah, and also React query also supports like some local caching, like for for better performance basically out of the box. So things like that, basically. That's why you use React query. But for the let's say for the call itself, you can still use the simple fetch, but then like you wrap it in some extra stuff, and you get this extra functionality. It also supports like TypeScript and things like that. So
Yeah.
you will actually get type hints, you know, on the things, and you can do your validation. So for example, you know, you can do the classical chain, like you want to, you know, fetch some data, but then you will also want to do, let's say, some validations and then pass the result. And the result of the validation is somewhat typed, so you can then, you know, like go about the types in your TypeScript code, which is kind of nice.
I see.
Yeah. So this is like really good way for REST APIs, but you can also use this with the GraphQL. But I would say for GraphQL we have like the Apollo client, which is like even more powerful for it. Yeah. Like the thing is, you know, you can then also like separate stuff, like you can have those methods that fetch and validate the data like somewhere else, and in your component you just say, okay, this is regarding the to-do state, and you use this method, and then you can use this method, and on success you can invalidate this query. So basically whenever user, like, you know, submits the post to to-dos, you will automatically refetch the to-dos from the API and render it. This is just some like simple example, but this is the idea.
Okay, very cool.
Yep. So yeah, like based on this example, you know, I can install the library, I can copy some example, I can, let's say, change the API to something, I don't know, favorite Pokemons or something, and I can show you how you can fetch your Pokemons and stuff. But like the principles are basically in the examples, and you just scale this, you know, like you can actually this like identifier for the state can be like in several different components, and you can, you know, use mutation in one component, and that will invalidate the, you know, multiple like other, you know, states, and those components will automatically get updated, you know, which is
Yes,
nice.
and React query is made for Next. Like, it wouldn't be for
No,
vanilla,
it's
yeah?
there. You can use it in the React as such.
Ah, okay.
But again, you can combine it, and then you do things like, okay, you know, I just need some data for basically those methods like fetching stuff. Okay, I will do that in my, I will call those methods, let's say, in my rendering the service, like getting the server side props, like for the server side rendering. So I will call these methods, let's say, also here, you know, and I will get the data, I will render it on the server, and just, you know, pass to the client like fully loaded page. It's actually super fast, it's good for SEO, it's like really good. So you do that, but on the client side, then you want to update, you know, those data, and you don't call like the rendering on the server again, you just calling the API. So then you combine it with the, you know, React query on the client. You can use the same method to fetch the data, but you will, you know, also put it into the query, and then, you know, the pre-rendered list can actually get like re-rendered and updated on the client as well.
Yes.
So you have like different kind of rendering, and you basically taking advantage of both worlds. Like from the server side rendering, you can get the content pretty fast, especially when it's cached. You get a good SEO because, like, you know, all the important parts of the page can be rendered on the server. So the, you know, Google and others just like download the, you know, HTML in the first load, and it the content is just there, which is like really good. And then, but then you load the page, okay, you loaded it fast and so on, but now you need it to be like interactive, you know, you want it to behave like single page app, when I can click, I can add stuff, and I don't need to refresh the whole page and render everything. But like the Next combines both. So you know, it will server side render the initial load, even cache it and so on, and then it will hydrate. It's called hydration. It will hydrate the React and connect it, you know, with the useQuery and stuff, and then you can like interact with it and do these things and have also the local state and changes locally, you know. And then when you hit refresh, it will also like, you know, do the other server side rendering, but the data should be already there because you will basically use the same method like get to do's for the server side render and client side render. And this method might be like in some, you know, separate file, just calling the fetch API and it's good.
Yeah, so it'll make things faster.
Yeah, it will make things faster, also like more let's say yeah, like search engine optimizations, you know, friendly, and also like accessibility friendly and so on. And yeah, basically load it faster, but keep the interactive part as well. And yeah, like it's kind of like you need to decide like what parts of the page are like suitable for server-side rendering, what parts are suitable for client-side rendering, what parts you want both. And then there are also other methods, so you can also decide, okay, this site I want the whole site like just generate it, you know, just generate it once as HTML and then just serve that HTML, and Next can do that as well. You can generate sites on the build time, just plain, let's say, HTML, and then serve it like on the request as well. So you can also have like, for example, contact page, which like won't change, can be like static site generated and so on. So you can actually choose like different types of renderings in single app, which is built with the Next. And that's also why the routing in the Next is kind of important, because like you basically select those pages and stuff like based on the based on the pages in the Next, like based on the routing and things like that.
Could you
And
get
then
into the routing a bit more once you're done with this stuff?
yeah, like the routing is like there's like usually when you have like, let's say, kind of vanilla React app, you use some library for the routing, for example, React router, which allows you to like route in your single page app, like how would you describe it? Like yeah, you can basically, you know, like change the URL, change the content somewhat, but not refresh the whole page, you know, like that's kind of the routing. But that's the client side routing, and you can also have server side routing. When you go to different URLs, you will get different pages. And again, like Next combines both of those things under let's say a simple routing. It actually has its own section here, and it's actually file-based routing. That means that you will have that pages folder, and in that folder you will basically create like files, like pages components, which will actually correspond to the URL. And then based on that, you can do both like server-side routing and client-side routing, which goes hand in hand with the different kinds of rendering. And yeah, and you can link to those pages for like through their URL and so on. And the funny thing, you know, when I go to this page like first time, you know, from the server, the Next will actually like server side render it and then returns the content. But then when I'm in the, you know, already loaded page and I click this link, it will just do the client side routing. So it will just change the URL and change some content, but it doesn't need to like, you know, go to the server and refresh the whole page. And it can like automatically distinguish, you know, if it's like server request or if it's like client, and does the routing, you know, for you. You just need to follow patterns and the structure of the pages to create the routing.
Because you're usually building a UI alongside some sort of server that you guys have or that you're making.
No, the Next actually contains the server like in itself. So when you that's basically the trade-off. When you host the like vanilla, let's say React page with just client-side rendering, what you do is like you just build a page with React, then you might, let's say, somewhat compile it, optimize it, or whatever. But then you just upload your static files somewhere, and you are basically done. And the client like loads the files, and then all the rendering and all the fetching and everything happens on the client. But with the Next, when you want to actually host the Next app, you need also like the server that actually runs Node.js to do the server-side rendering for you. So the trade-off here is like that you need actually like running computing server with Node.js to be able to host the app. Because even in the like build state, the app actually runs both on the server and on the client as well.
I see.
Like still single code base, but part of it like runs on the server and part of like in the node and parts of it run in the browser. Like,
so this is what confuses me, Henry. So how comfortable, because I mean, I think most of us here, or at least me, I'm not very comfortable with any sort of server side. I've done some Node.js, but not much. So I'm more comfortable with the browser. So is it worth getting more comfortable with server side? Programming, building.
yes, like with rendering the pages on the server, right? Well, yeah, it kind of is, because like when you build your app with just client-side rendering, like the, let's say, classical single page app, you get like some benefits, like when you load the page, you don't need to refresh or anything, just update some content and re-render it all on the client. But you also lose some stuff. You need to wait kind of long time for everything to be initialized and visible. It's not running without the JavaScript. Actually, like server-side rendered page can run like without any JavaScript. If it's all server-side rendered. But of course, that also has some like disadvantages. But like you can run it without it, so it loads faster. You see the content also, like I said, the SEO and stuff like that is also better for server-side rendered pages. And yeah, so there are some advantages, but of course disadvantages. Like again, you don't want to refresh the whole page every time, so that's where the client side rendering is better. But like with the Next, you basically combine both like into the single code base and single app. And like, don't get me wrong, like the server-side rendering also happens with React and stuff. It's like the same page, same React component, but it can render both on the server and on the client as well. Does it make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. Yeah.
You don't write like separate code for the server and for the client. You write the extra like get server side prop method to be able to server side render, but that's it. Like then it's just the React components getting those props and rendering on the server, or that same component like getting those props on the client and like rendering on the client.
Yeah. So what you're saying is one should have a basic understanding of how the data is going from
Exactly.
the browser to the server. Yeah.
Exactly. Now you get it. And that's what I was talking about, like almost the like half of the lesson like last time.
Right. Okay.
And this is just a practical application of all the theory. Yeah.
That's
And
fair
by
enough.
the way, you can do the same thing like in other frameworks. Like for example, you have Vue, Vue.js, and then you have like Nuxt, which is like alternative for Next, but with Vue. Then you have like I don't know, Svelte, like another framework, and you have the Svelte kit, which is here. You have the Svelte kit, which is like the next for Svelte, with the server side rendering and stuff. So you have like this like basic rendering stuff in like different libraries, and then you have like those, let's say, high level frameworks which supports like routing and different types of rendering and stuff like in every language. You have like React query, but then as you've seen, they transform the project, and now you have also like Vue query and Svelte query and things like that. So basically, you can use the same principles with like different UI libraries. That's
Hmm.
the idea. The
Same
principles
idea, same
are
concept.
like the concepts and the principles of the rendering are like transitive between, like, independent of any like framework or something. Like server-side rendering, like basically what we did is like historically we did like full circle. We started the web with just, let's say, server side, or we started the web like with the uh let's say generated, but we wrote it by hand, like generated HTML pages which were like just downloaded and displayed, like that was the first web, just like some HTML and stuff. Then we thought, okay, so we can like dynamically generate those pages with some code. So we did like PHP and stuff, and basically that's the server side rendering. You get some data, you generate your page like on the server, and you send it to the client. So that's the server side rendering. And then we upgraded, and we said, okay, we won't send like generated page, we will send just some code that will kick in the client with the JavaScript and renders everything on the client. And also the big advantage here that it can like change the content like dynamically without need for server to re-render everything or something. We will just do API call for the data and just render parts of the page like on the client, which is like really good. But then we came back and we thought like, yeah, but now when we do like really complicated apps with a lot of data on the client is actually super slow, and it takes time to load and see everything, because you first need to load like everything from the React and from the code of the page and so on. Then you can start actually fetching those data, and then after you fetch all those data, you can start displaying the content with the JavaScript, which can be kind of slow sometimes, and like it's not very favorable for search engines and I don't know, readers for blind people or stuff like that, which like depends on some like HTML content like beforehand. So then we like came back and we said, well, we can again do some like server side rendering to at least like render something on the server, then serve it, like send it to the browser, so it can display page, or at least some part of the page. That's good. But then we want the same thing. We want to be able like to click on stuff and not refresh the whole page, but just change parts of the page, like the client side rendering. And then and then we came like with those frameworks that basically do both, like, but with single code. So it's like we don't have to write like specific server side rendering in PHP and then specific like client side rendering in React. We can just write one React code and then run it with Node.js on the server and with browser JavaScript on the client, and have like the best of the both worlds. And then also we came back and said, well, some of those pages actually don't need that interactivity, so we can probably like generate them beforehand, and have just that static HTML stored somewhere, and just serve it on the demand, which is like the fastest thing. So it can be really great for a front page or for a contact page or some stuff like that, which like won't change. And we actually build it to the like next. So now you can basically like choose, I want this part of the app like server render, this part should be both server, support both like server and client side rendering, this part like is super interactive, something that I don't want to do on the server, it will be just client render. This page, this whole page I can, you know, generate, and I can do this whole thing in one code base with React, with just one framework. And the like, of course, like the
Wow.
payment for that is that I need to host that server side rendering on the server that actually runs the Node.js. That's it. But
Okay, that makes a lot of sense actually. Because
yeah,
I was wondering about, you know, where I was wondering about why, you know, it was PHP was big at some point and all that, and how, you know,
yeah,
it doesn't the linear timeline is what I, you know, it didn't make much sense in my head, I guess, but that makes sense what you said.
yeah. We basically like came back and like now we have like everything and we can choose. And we even do stuff like we want to, you know, render this page and postpone rendering of some stuff until we have the data. And we do like lots of stuff, like also with rack suspense and things like that. Like you can combine much more like into that. Then you can cache the, like I said, you can cache the server side rendered page for even like better performance, because then if the cache is hit, you don't need to, you know, run any code, you just serve that content from the cache, which is super fast. And then what we did, and what like actually the Next.js framework belongs to this company called Verso. And Verso actually provides like hosting for specifically for like Next.js apps, which means that you can like build your app and like easily host it like with the Verso. And what Verso like does like for the actually rendering is like really cool, because they don't actually run the servers, but they run like they can run like these edge functions. And what that does is you want to load the page like from the server, but basically they do your like proximate geolocation based your IP address and stuff. They connect you to the nearest data center. Then they start like, you know, cloud function just to, you know, render your page. It's basically wakes up, like runs the Node.js rendering and then dies just for you, you know. Then they store the cache like to the global CDN, so that one re-render of your page is actually globally distributed through all the data centers like for the cache, and then return you the result. And when the next person goes from somewhere completely different, they hit the global cache and just get the result there and stuff like that.
Okay.
And that's what like Verso
And
Verso.
caching is obviously better than, or it goes alongside local storage and server
Well,
what's it called?
this is like caching on the
Cache.
server. It means like basically they do the like render of the page with the data. And what they do usually is they hash the data like to be like some unique string, and then they store it to some, you know, key value storage like the cache. And they say, if user requests this page with this, you know, same data, they just, you know, compare the hash with the data, you can return the already rendered content which is under the cache. So you don't need to render the whole page. You just validate that you
Ah,
hit
yes.
the same, that you hit the same thing that would produce the same result, but the result is already there, so you can just return it.
Right. I gotcha.
And that's also like much faster, because like rendering of the page can take like 100 milliseconds, hitting the cache can take like 10 milliseconds. It can be like really fast.
And that data is stored on the server, is it?
Yeah, that's the like the best part. Like all of this is basically handled by the Verso. You just develop your Next.js app with your rendering as you want it. You build it, you basically do like Verso deploy, and it's done. They will take care of everything. like of course for some price, but
but it's efficient.
yeah, and you can also do like automatic deployments, based on GitHub and things like that, and they are really confident, and they also store your old version of the app, so when you messed up something, you just do one click and they actually like roll back your app to the previous version almost instantly, so you can be up and running again and things like that, of course. Like
I see.
modern development.
You're giving us all the goods.
Yeah, that's what we use like at work, like uh yeah, by the way, like I mentioned, I work for this company called STRV. I won't do any sales pitch. Yeah, this is just like stuff we do. Yeah.
That's where the front end academy
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I can send you those links, of course. I've already like sent them last time, but like, cool. So yeah, this is like about the things, and like of course, like you start, you need to understand how the pages work in like Next, but like the content of the page is just React. The pages are just functions with some React content. But then the important thing is the data fetching, and basically everything I told you is described like here in those sessions. So you have like the server side rendering, static side generation, and client side rendering, and you need to combine it with the dynamic routing, so everything kind of works together. And sometimes you want to customize the routing a bit for like to distinguish between server side and client side. Like, yep, but that happens. And new thing that actually introduced recently is also incremental static side generation, which is another way how you can actually render pages. But the main parts were basically like server side and client side rendering, and sometimes the static side generation. Like the static side generation is really for specific use case when you have like just the page that you want to render once and like in the future, or like at least not like frequently or something.
That's like using Gatsby and
Yeah,
Jekyll and those
exactly. That's
things.
that's the Gatsby. That's the Gatsby style. Yeah.
Hmm.
And you can have it also like in this one code base. Yeah. Basically like with all of those options, like Next is like we talked about it last time. We also look at the surveys and statistics. Basically, like for the React, Next is like the one place to go. It kind of like outdated those other frameworks, for example Gatsby. I know that like it's still used, but like Next is currently dominating like the React field. Yeah, and yeah, like I said, then you can go, and you can read how and why, why you want why you want to do client side, and you know stuff like that, and the caching and
Yeah, right on the documentation there.
yeah, like I said, like everything is either in the documentation, or I had a tutorial. I sent you like the links to the academy. And it's like the 3 months course, when we started already. Like, yeah, like you should know React and stuff, but now you learn like from there how we actually develop the apps and whatnot, because like it's kind of a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. I thought I thought that getting into vanilla React was like that we're good to go. But obviously, things are changing so fast.
Yeah, like this is like two levels like above.
I understand.
Yeah. So that's I would say that's kind of it. I know that we again did more theory than practice, but at least I did some coding a little bit.
No, it's very for me. It was very informative.
Yeah. Good. So, well, you have a lot to think about for the next, or like if you want the next session, or if you have some specific questions or anything. I know it's a lot to handle, but for example, if you want to do some solid project together, we will need this stuff or something, like kind of it, and yeah, I can do the same or similar introductions to backend, to DevOps, to other fields if you are interested, or yeah.
Definitely.
I don't know everything, but I know stuff. So yeah. But like I said, it depends. I know that when we like talked about this in the Slack, we said okay, like I'm kind of specialized in web development, so kind of let's say full stack web development. So I know most about that probably. But yeah, we just we said okay, let's start with the front end. So we now kind of did the front end. We can do backend, we can do like infrastructure, DevOps, and stuff.
Yeah. I'm having a love-hate relationship with Django right now.
Okay.
Very love-hate relationship. Yeah. Yeah,
And I saw on the front end academy page,
Mm-hmm.
and it said like May 10th to June 28th. So your team used like 2 months to learn front end, like part time, right? Not full time.
Mm,
For the
well,
2 months.
no, like the academy was like yeah, it was started like yes in June or something, and it ended like recently. So it was like 2.5 month or something like that, yeah. And that was just for the academy, and the academy was actually for external people. It was like our people teaching people that are interested in development, like the stuff that we do. So it's not like that, like we teach like internal people. It's for external people, and I'm actually blessed by our front end guys, like to share the
Yes,
GitHub
yes.
and everything.
I just want to know about the time that you guys learn. Like how long do you guys learn?
Yeah, like the attendees of the academy, yeah, they were attending it for 2 and something of month, but of course like they probably didn't catch up everything, and it was not just the lectures, but like also uh they like needed to work on the project, like they had to mentor and stuff like that. It was like in person, so there was more than just this, but this is the, let's say, result material from the academy.
Do you
that,
use the real project in the
Mm,
company to
no,
train?
no, no, no.
No.
But no, definitely not, because like it's like I can't let like people, even though they've signed some like NDAs and stuff, like I can't let like people go and mess up some code for the like real project. We use that test project that is actually like introduced in the materials, that like event planning project something, just as a reference.
Just a demo project.
Yeah, just a demo project.
Yeah, that kind of brings us to kind of a conversation we had a couple weeks ago where we were talking about like doing a project for this, Slack group.
Mm-hmm.
And the question, that we all had, and we kind of wanted to like get your input was, how do you divvy up the work? Because so like the thing is I don't think like on one specific task. I mean, I get it if you're like creating, if you have a website where you're creating several pages every day, it's a big website, right? Or you're
Mm-hmm.
doing like a lot of different things. I get that you can keep somebody, a team employed, full time and
Yeah,
whatnot,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, if you're doing something like this, like, I mean, I'm pretty confident even right now I could set up the back end for something like Django.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you like did it like if you set up like a Docker file, got, like the back end in Django. This is what we were talking about. And then the front end in Vue. And so if we did this, right? So I can get the Docker file up and running fairly quickly. I can get
Yeah,
the
yeah.
the Django file. I can get that to, and then it would just be figuring out how to work with the Vue file. But then like that's like two people in a few hours and it's done. And then
Yeah,
you're
like
adding
like
content and whatnot.
set up the project. It's usually one guy.
Yeah.
Like for example, like those MVPs or projects we do,
Mm.
they are usually developed like in the small teams, like per platform. So let's say like two front end guys, two back end guys, two iOS
Mm.
guys or something, like uh, for pair at least, so they can like do code reviews and some collaboration at least. But we usually do like smaller teams, 2 3 guys per platform,
Mm.
depending. We have also bigger project where there's like 5 guys per platform, and suddenly it's like 30 people on the project, if you have like everything. But yeah, but anyway, like you do like smaller teams for sure. And for example, we also have like postponed starts, so we know that we probably need to start with the backend, and other platforms can join, let's say, later, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later. And we also know that like for the setup, you only need one guy for first, let's say, week. So that's how we plan it. Like one guy starts, set up the projects, the other guy, let's say, joins after a week. They split the features, start working. Then after 2 3 weeks, when they have some features, the front end can join, connect the APIs and so on. Like you need to plan for this.
Mm.
Sure.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It's just the my only thing is, and this is what I was sitting there, this is what I was, and this is kind of what I was thinking anyway, is that, it's like if you set up like it, like if you just took, a little while and set up like your back end and everything, and then you're like, okay, now go ahead and, fire up, your Docker file and,
Mm-hmm.
and get your server up and running, and then, you know, put your front end down. I mean, still, you're still only talking like 3 people, maybe 4. But we could add like things like, you could add like, so say we had a website and then, somebody wanted to add a page, they wanted to add a tutorial or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now there's something there where like they're learning how to interact with this website. So I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
pretty valuable
yeah, yeah, for
because
sure.
I
Like,
I'm not entirely certain how I would interact with that website off the top of my head, but
yeah,
I have some ideas, but I don't know for sure. I mean, I would have to actually get my hands dirty, like I have been so with
yeah.
Django lately.
Yeah. Like you are absolutely right. Like for like smaller projects like you don't need super big teams. It grows like with the time. Basically, the thing is like the setup might be even one man job, but then like the features, the thing, like you can do the work on different features in parallel. or different pages or different components even. And it's like just about planning, and management. And you can have like 6 people working, 6 different features, and that's nice. But also, it happens that those features are somewhat related or dependent on each other and so on, and that's where the planning and everything is like kind of important. And it goes more beyond like just development, but also like project management and things like that, where you need to plan your sprints or your work in general, in some steps, and divide the work between the people. Yeah, so like if we say, okay, let's kick out some simple project, fine. So we can do the setup, easily. One person, other person can just review, and approve, and then we have the setup. So you at least want to have some like peer review. That's always a good thing. And then yeah, so now we have the setup and we want to do like those 6 pages. So then some other people can come in, and they can take the pages or features, and then start working on them, and then do the code reviews, to each other for the different pages. So that's kind of like workflow that you would probably want, and you would need somebody to kind of manage it probably. Like you can start doing it, let's say, a little bit organically, and you can like start, I don't know, GitHub has like GitHub projects or something, so you can start board similar to Trello or something like there. You can do the columns like new, in progress, done, or review, done, something. And you can put those 6 pages to the new and say, hey guys, here are the tasks, each one pick one, and then move it through the columns as you progress. Then do the pull request, ask for review, and things like that, and like let it partially manage itself, just little overhead. Yeah, but like you would need something like that to actually like employ multiple people on one project, because yeah, like collaboration is nice, but it can also complicate things, like to be honest, like
So, actually, I mean, like, probably one of the things that we could really, that I'm really interested in learning more about, just on a personal level, and this is, I think it would help all of us, is the concept of continuous integration
yeah.
with version control.
Yeah. Well, you first need to kind of like master like the, let's say, version control, like in general, and
Mm-hmm.
like the processes there. Then you can start with the continuous integration, even continuous deployment, and yeah, it's a nice thing. Like when you have like pipeline for delivering stuff, and that's by the way like part of the DevOps, or
Mm-hmm.
usually, at least, like when you have but like yeah, DevOps is also like responsible for the developers. So you can set up some, basically you set up some automation. When you put there some comments or something, you either wait for a review or something, or you can even do like continuous delivery, but that it requires some like restrictions. But let's say you can do continuous delivery, like you push new changes to the master, and then, it gets automatically evaluated and tested and so on, when you have automated tests and things like that. And after, if everything is okay, it gets automatically deployed somewhere and so on. And you basically, the process that you would do manually, imagine like you somebody submits some new work. How do they do it? Well, preferably through some version control. So they can either do pull request or push their changes somewhere. And then what you would need to do is like go there, or pull those changes, like download them, then run, let's say, some linters or some static code analysis, which tells you like mistakes in formatting or stuff like that. So that's the first thing. Then you would probably want to test it. And yeah, you can go manually, you can click through some stuff, you can use, I don't know, Postman or some some other stuff to test the APIs and so on, like manually. Then you evaluate that everything probably works, as you expected. So then you can go and you can actually manually like upload it like to some server to be actually okay. See you, Dustin.
Later.
Yeah, so upload like to some server to be actually like accessible through through some website or something. And you should probably be familiar with those concepts and to be able to imagine how you do those steps like manually, with command line and commands and like things like that. And if you can imagine that, now imagine that you like write down all those steps in some some, let's say, scenario or some like code script, something. And that script just gets executed every time when you do that pull request or when you do that commit to some branch. It just hooks to the git and executes automatically. And that's continuous integration, basically. Automate all this process like for every time that somebody pushes something somewhere.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm familiar with the concept. I just
Okay.
a couple of the specifics I'd like to see it done so that I could
Okay.
I
Yeah.
could
Well, the
'cause-
specific kind of depends on the tools, right? So you have the Git, but do you use GitHub or GitLab or something else that's the
mhm,
first thing, or how do you do you have your own Git server? Like
yeah.
everything is possible there. So then you can choose your tools based on that. You have
Mm,
okay. So you, for example, you use GitHub, fine. So the easiest way is probably GitHub Actions. That's the tool that you can use there. But there are also like other independent like tools like Circle CI or something like that, which can just integrate with the GitHub, or you can integrate their browser or other stuff that you use for your project that supports connection to GitHub and some kind of like integration, in the sense that where new code gets like pushed, the thing is basically notified, pulls the code and does something. There's a lot of services. And then of course, like depending on the service of your choosing, you run through the documentation and configurations and stuff, and you learn how to configure it and do it. So GitHub Action, they have documentation. It's kind of simple because it's like built into the GitHub, and you just need some YAML configuration steps. They kind of built like whole system of extensions. So there's like extension to run Node.js stuff or things like that. So you just say okay, GitHub Action, load this code, on push to the main branch. Okay, load this code, then set me up, Node.js environment with this, action. Set me up database with this action, even like whatever you want, and all like happens there automatically. Then just configurations, basically just one line, like I want to use this action, and then a couple of lines, for example, for configuration of that action. And yeah, and just write script like 100 lines of all the steps and the YAML, and that's all. And then you actually take that YAML and you push it to the repository itself, like on the GitHub, and GitHub picks that file. It needs to have some specific name, and just runs those actions, and you can actually see the result in the GUI within the GitHub. That's all. You just need to know the like syntax and things around the action, and then find those custom modules that you want to use.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that a little
Yeah.
bit.
It's
I would really
again like about like knowing the concept and then picking one of the many tools that that exist, and then learning and applying that one tool that you choose, basically.
Yeah, I pretty much just like I use I pretty much just use my terminal to like put in like all the commands and stuff. So I mean like I don't
Yeah.
have like any GUI or anything that I use for like version control. I don't like them, just because they um I've used stuff like, like what is it? Like I think it's Maggot on Vim or something. Things like that I've used in the past, and they're okay. But um, yeah, for sure, Omar.
Yeah, thank
Yeah. So like I've used all of those, and I've used a few others. I've used my problem with my problem with with like VS Code and their Git thing is I have a Git bear repository. Do you know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I have that because so that I can just automatically like download all my config files. Well,
Mm-hmm.
it
Yeah.
grabs that, and I have like 5,000 different uploads possible at any one time. They're like, which ones do you want to do? And then it just like, takes a crap on me. And so it's like, I don't know why that does that though.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know why it picks up my Git bear repository every single time. Because I use a completely like different um I use a completely oh that might be it. Because sometimes I do mix the uh okay, I got you. I think I know why that now.
See,
I never
easy.
thought about that. Yeah, because I think I mixed the what do you call it? Um the branch, and so sometimes I use that branch to upload things onto on a GitHub repository, and that's the same one that I push on to for my GitLab. So they're forked basically. That's probably why. I never thought about that because I always like pull it up. I'm like, why? I just like disabled the get function in there because I just like it's like drives me nuts. But I always use a virtual machine anyway for all of my projects, so that it just stays isolated from everything else. Yeah.
Well, okay, so yeah, we can do some DevOps or some backend next time probably, or anything like fine.
I'm really, really enjoying Django.
Glad to hear that.
Not really. God,
I know.
that is frustrating. It's very tedious, and it throws a bunch of errors. But I'm figuring it out. So I got it to read my index.html file. So I'm good.
Cool. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
I'm probably gonna go. It's
All
almost
right.
midnight here, so I should get some rest.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Yeah. 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 Thank you as well, Mimi, for listening.
Yeah.
And yeah. So thanks, guys, and see you next time, I guess.
Okay. I'll have this
Take
up
care.
here as soon as possible. I'll have the video
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, no worries.
All right.
Okay. Take care,
Later.
man. See
Bye.
you.